My search is always to find ways to chronicle, to share, and to document stories about people, just everyday people, stories that offer transformation, that lean into transcendence, but that are never sentimental, that never look away from the darkest things about us. Because I really believe that we're never more beautiful than when we're most ugly, because that's really the moment we really know what we're made of. As Chris said, I grew up in Nigeria with a whole generation in the 80s of students who were protesting a military dictatorship, which has finally ended. So it wasn't just me, it was a whole generation of us. But what I've come to learn is that the world is never saved in grand Messianic gestures, but in the simple accumulation of gentle, soft, almost invisible acts of compassion, everyday acts of compassion. In South Africa, they have a phrase called Ubuntu. Ubuntu comes out of a philosophy that says, the only way for me to be human is for you to reflect my humanity back at me. But if you're like me, my humanity is more like a window. I don't really see it. I don't pay attention to it until there's like a bug that's dead on the window, then suddenly I see it. And usually, it's never good. It's usually when I'm cussing in traffic. That's someone who is trying to drive their car and drink coffee and send emails and make notes. So what Ubuntu really says is that there is no way for us to be human without other people. It's really very simple, but really very complicated. So I thought I should start with some stories. I should tell you some stories about remarkable people. So I thought I'd start with my mother. This woman, during the Biafran War, we were caught in the war. It's my mother with 5 little children. It takes her 1 year through refugee camp after refugee camp to make her way to an airstrip where we can fly out of the country. At every single refugee camp, she has to face off soldiers who want to take my elder brother Mark, who's 9, and make him a boy soldier. So imagine this 5'2" woman standing up to men with guns who want to kill us. All through that 1 year, my mother never cried one time, not once. But when we were in Lisbon, in the airport, about to fly to England, this woman saw my mother wearing this dress, which had been washed so many times it was basically see-through, with 5 really hungry-looking kids, came over and asked her what had happened, and she told this woman, and so this woman emptied out her suitcase and gave all of her clothes to my mother and to us, and the toys of her kids, who didn't like that very much. But that was the only time she cried. And I remember years later, I was writing about my mother, and I asked her, why did you cry then? And she said, you can steel your heart against any kind of trouble, any kind of horror, but the simple act of kindness from a complete stranger will unstitch you. The old women in my father's village, after this war had happened, memorized the names of every dead person. And they would sing these dirges made up of these names, dirges so melancholic that they would scorch you. And they would sing them only when they planted the rice, as though they were seeding the hearts of the dead into the rice. But when it came for harvest time, they would sing these joyful songs that were made up of the names of every child who had been born that year. And then the next planting season, when they sang the dirge, they would remove as many names of the dead as equaled as many people that were born. And in this way, these women enacted a lot of transformation, beautiful transformation.